America's problems are significant, if not growing. The coronavirus pandemic is expanding with new cases once again, and the country's shaky effort to climb out of its economic holes at risk. Things won't be back to normal anytime soon. Things almost certainly won't be back to normal by the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, the day when Americans head to the polling booth or must have postmarked their ballots to weigh in on whether 45 deserves a second term, which he doesn't. Um, but as rocky as the country's path forward seems at the moment, 45's path to a second term doesn't seem any smoother. The past 24 hours have brought more bad news for 45 after a rough few weeks. A spate of bad polls revealed his electoral weakness, as did his failure to generate a promised turnout at his Klan rally in Tulsa on Saturday. The negative implications of those two developments that 45 was faring poorly, both overall and with his ability to motivate his base, were bolstered by the news overnight. When 45 appointed then Representative Mark Meadows, who's a Republican from North Carolina, to be his fourth chief of staff, Meadows' seat in the House came up for grabs. On Tuesday, voters in the district went to the polls in the Republican primary to replace Meadows. 45 won the district by 17 points in 2016, so it's safe to assume that the winner of the Republican primary would win the seat. Both Meadows and 45 endorsed Linda Bennett to replace Meadows, but 45 did so twice on Twitter, declaring her both times to be strong on crime, borders, military, and our great medicine, and 2A promises that were part of his standard platter in 2018. Bennett embraced the endorsement the morning after the contest. Her campaign website still touted 45's endorsement as the primary bit of information it presented to its voters. It didn't work. Bennett was beaten easily by 24-year-old Madison Cawthorn, who, if he wins the general election, would become the youngest members of the House in history. During the 2018 elections, 45 regularly touted his track record on primary endorsements as evidence of his political strength. Generally, that boasting was valid. His endorsed candidates did usually win Republican primaries. It was his general election endorsements that had any iffy record, with about half of 45's endorsed candidates winning election in the year's races. Later research suggested, in fact, that endorsements in some general election races might have cost Republicans more than a dozen seats. But this year, even 45's party endorsements aren't seeing much success. Ballotpedia has been tracking 45's endorsements, and of the 4 general endorsements he has made, including at the state level for which results have been determined, 45 is over 4. Not included in Ballotpedia's endorsements was 45's tactic for supporting Todd McMurtry in Kentucky. 45 never endorsed McMurtry, but he did say this about his opponent. Incumbent Representative Thomas Massey, who's a Republican from Kentucky. In another tweet, 45 implored someone to throw Massey out of the Republican Party. Massey won by 70 points according to the results. There are isolated examples, certainly, but it does suggest that Republican voters aren't excessively taking their cues from 45. If that reflects a softness in support for 45, the squatter might see a lower turnout in November, if not the Republicans bailing to support former Vice President Joe Biden, who's the presumptive Democratic Party nominee. This wouldn't be the only indicator that the energy of 45's base is waning, and this is the polling offers similar hints. Polling, of course, also has other bad news for 45. When a CNN SSRS poll determined that 45 was trailing Biden by 14 points, 45 went apeshit. He tweeted a laughable analyst of the poll, and his campaign followed it with an even more laughable lawsuit accusing CNN of bias. Since then, the 3 other major polls have shown Biden with the double-digit lead, one from CNBC showing Biden up 10 points, one from Faux News showing Biden up by 12, and on Wednesday, one from the New York Times and Santa College showing him up once again by 14 points. The 45's campaign legal team will apparently be busy filing specious lawsuits this month. That spate of polls has pushed Biden's lead in the Real Clear Politics polling average to more than 10 points, his largest lead since late last year before Biden locked up the Democratic nomination. 45 has never led Biden in the Real Clear polls polling average, and in fact he has never fared better than trailing Biden by 4 points. If you round each candidate's average, Biden has most commonly been at 50% and 45 at 42%. 45's highest position in the average is 45%, and Biden's lowest is 46%. As Hillary Clinton and Al Gore can tell you, the national polling isn't everything, particularly more than 4 months from Election Day, but it's certainly not the case that the polls are good news for 45. What's more, it's not the case that things are getting better for the incumbent squatter. That CNN SSRS poll was conducted from June 2nd to June 4th. The time CNN one was in the field 2 weeks later with a similar similar poor showing by 45. This race is all about 45 and 45's handling of his shitty job as a squatter, and 45 has been consistently unpopular as his approval numbers have been consistently low. Biden is more popular than Clinton, and 45 has been unable to significantly budge that. He doesn't have the benefit of being a blank political slate anymore, meaning that he is less likely to get the benefit of the doubt from the voters. And here comes the required caveat. Things can and will change, and 45 has obviously proved predictions wrong before, but when 45 weighs in a House race in a red state and his preferred candidate in the Republican primary gets beaten easily, as national polls show him trailing by double digits, it's safe to say that he's not in a good position right now.